The Life of Edgar Allan Poe by Shelby Blacklock, Nick Jackson, and Latoya Wetzel. Edgar Allan Poe was born on January 19, 1809 in Boston, Massachusetts. Just a year later, his sister, Rosalie, was born. His father abandoned the family in 1810, only to have passed away a year later. Poe's mother also passed away within that same year from tuberculosis. Poe was taken into the home of John Allen in Richmond, Virginia, where his sister was taken into the home of the William Mackenzies, who were neighbors to the Allens. John Allen, in search of business ventures abroad, decides to move his family to England. Poe attended school abroad, but when his father's business ventures were unsuccessful, the father then moved back to America in 1820, where Poe attended the Richmond schools of Joseph H. Clark and William Burke. John Allen and Clark had discouraged Poe from publishing a volume of poems. In 1826, Poe attends the University of Virginia. Poe had acquired quite a few gambling debts that John Allen refuses to pay. Having many disagreements with John Allen, Poe decides to leave on his own and head to Boston, where he becomes a West Point cadet in 1829. Just 2 years later, Poe grows tired of being a cadet and rebels. He is dismissed from the academy, but not before obtaining subscriptions to his poems. Poe moves from New York back to Boston with his family. In 1832, Poe has 5 short stories published in the Philadelphia Saturday Courier. Poe's father dies on March 27, 1834. Unsuccessful in finding employment as a teacher in Baltimore, Poe is encouraged by John Pendleton Kennedy to write for the Southern Literary Messenger. In 1836, Poe marries his cousin Virginia, who was barely 14 at the time. Poe has ties to Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, Washington Irving, Charles Dickens, and admired Nathaniel Hawthorne. Some of the men he admired, while others he thought were overrated. Regardless of how he felt, he often critiqued their works, as well as used them to critique his own. He used some of them to help spur his own literary growth. At the beginning of 1849, Poe expresses love for Annie Richmond, who is a married woman. In February, Poe begins to contribute to the Flag of Our Union, which is a Boston weekly. He wrote a poem entitled For Annie, dedicated to Annie Richmond. Poe eventually partners with Edward H. N. Patterson to form their own newspaper. Poe is the editor and half owner. Poe has serious problems with drinking. In June of 1849, he drinks excessively and falls to delirium tremens, but eventually recovers. In early October, Poe drinks excessively again and falls to delirium tremens. He slips into a comatose state and eventually dies. In his work, What Was Poe Thinking?, He was influenced by Virginia Poe's illness. She suffers from a pulmonary hemorrhage while singing. Poe struggled to come to terms with Virginia Poe's slow decline and death, which shows up as a theme. Prince Prospero and the other wealthy nobles attempt to hide from and avoid the Red Death. Poe became the book review editor for Graham's magazine in 1841. Poe was influenced possibly by Thomas Campbell's Life of Patriarch, published in 1841, which Poe reviewed 8 months before his work was published in the same periodical, Graham's, about a plague broken out in Italy. This story is said to be a major influence in the framework of Masque of the Red Death. It reads, "The plague now again broke out in Italy. The nobles and court abandoned their capital. Galeazzo Visconti repaired to Monza Barnabo, shut himself in his strong castle at Manigno, near Lodi, a place that was thought to be sheltered from pestilence by the dense woods around it. He had his retreat strictly guarded, allowing no one to approach it. A sentinel was placed in one of the towers, who had orders to ring the bell whenever he saw anyone approaching on horseback. Some gentlemen entered the precincts of the castle without anyone having heard the bell. Barnabo immediately sent orders to put the sentinel to death, but they found him dead beneath the bell. This event so frightened our chieftain that he went and hid himself in the thickest depths of the forest, where he lived so sequestered as to cause a report of his death." Thomas Campbell's work was published in Graham's magazine in 1841, and Poe just happened to be the editor of the magazine at this time. Just 8 months before Poe's The Masque of the Red Death was published in the same magazine. For a moment, let's speak about the Red Death. It was a fictitious illness created by Poe. Similar to consumption, some say it is like the Black Death or bubonic plague because of the way Poe describes the illness. There were sharp pains and sudden dizziness, and then profuse bleeding by the pores, with dissolution. This is an excerpt from Poe, page 269 from our book, The Complete Works of Poe. Many compared the illness to real-life illness in that time period. Bubonic plague, Black Death, and chloroplague. Chloroplague was caused by sewage. The bubonic plague, or the Black Death, was a fatal disease that lived in rats and humans. This fatal pandemic killed millions. Symptoms included the appearance of sores, swelling in the lymph nodes, the vomiting of blood, and fever and rashes. What is the Masque of the Red Death even about? Prince Prospero is the main character in Poe's The Masque of the Red Death. He is a merciless ruler who abandons his people while the plague, the Red Death, sweeps his country. Due to his nobility, Prince Prospero is able to travel to the countryside along with other rich nobles in order to live in luxury and wait out the plague. In the countryside, the prince holds a lavish masquerade every day in an effort to keep up a facade of forgetting that death is sweeping the land. An exquisite abbey provides all the luxury and entertainment for the rich as the poor perish under disease. The abbey holds 7 rooms spanning from east to west, the first of which is blue, The second is purple. The third, green. The fourth, orange. The fifth, white. The sixth, violet. And the seventh is shrouded in black with red panes. The seventh room also hosts the black ominous clock that chimes and strikes fear into those in attendance. In the final scene, the masked red figure arrives at the abbey, floating around the room like a phantom amongst the guests. The prince believes the masked figure to be insulting him by posing as death. The prince and the masked figure then travel through the colored rooms from blue and progressing until the end is met in the seventh chamber. At that point, the figure is revealed to be the Red Death, who takes the life of all of the nobility and Prince Prospero. The colors of the rooms have a much deeper meaning in the text. The progression of colors can stand for the progression of human life. The spectrum of the rooms begin with blue. This color is most associated with birth. The ending of this spectrum is red and black. These colors are aligned best with illness, such as the bloody plague and death. The rooms in the abbey represent human life and the human mind. Some of the rooms are welcoming, while some are locked and some ominous and uninviting. A few themes of the Masque of the Red Death. Privilege does not separate one from death. Death is the ultimate equalizer. Although Prospero's castle is meant to keep the Red Death out, it essentially keeps it in. Man's attempt to fight off death, no matter how hard one tries, always falls short. Death is inevitable. The masked figure represents both life and death. Death is essentially the ultimate equalizer. To listen to the audiobook for Poe's Masque of the Red Death, please visit the site below. Thank you for listening. This has been the story screencast of The Masque of the Red Death by Shelby Blacklock, Nick Jackson, and Latoya Wetzel.